This is Grafted Together with ACSI Chief Ministry Officer Jerry Nelson.
Well, I'm just about 2 decades into my career as a Christian educator and just old enough to remember the days of overhead transparencies and PowerPoint just becoming a thing, or even email not being standard use. You still got the memo in the box from your administrator. But we are squarely in the information age, and in particular, the age of AI, artificial intelligence. And I know this in particular here in South Florida. Many of you who listen, you know I love my hometown. And at our local Frost Museum, they have an exhibit on display called AI More Than Human. And they've set up an immersive display, just really exploring how AI has developed and what the relationship between humans and technology is, especially in this day and age. Well, I'm Jerry Nelson. This is Grafted Together. And remember, spiritual formation matters. Joining me today to discuss this whole idea of artificial intelligence, particularly generative artificial intelligence, is Dr. Steve Mason, who works as a student success teacher for middle and high school students. He has worked in education for over 30 years as an administrator and teacher in the Southeast. He recently graduated from Columbia International University with a PhD in educational leadership, where he researched administrators and teacher perspectives concerning AI as a tool to support struggling writers. He has been married for 21 years to his wife, Mary, and has 2 children, Kaylee, who's 12, and Lincoln, who's 10. Dr. Mason has a passion to help teachers and students use the gifts God has given them to serve him in the world around them. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, really appreciate you joining the podcast. And we have a mutual friend, Dr. Stouffer.
Yes.
You know, I had an opportunity to meet him pretty much about a year ago at a leadership network meeting here in Florida. And we just really struck up a conversation. And so when I read your dissertation and I saw that he was your committee chair, I was like, oh, I think I'm really going to enjoy this conversation. So just want to give a shout out to Dr. Bob. Love you. Appreciate you. Thank you for your work in Christian education.
Yes, definitely.
Well, let's dive right in, Steve. I was really intrigued by your dissertation and when we got connected, and really your focus on generative AI. And what I thought was really cool is that you did your research largely based on ACSI schools, secondary ACSI schools, just really exploring their perceptions of and their usage of AI. But my question is, what made you decide to pursue your dissertation in this particular area?
Well, it was not my first choice. My first choice resulted, honestly, from my son, who was kind of grew up in the COVID age, kindergarten, first grade, and we were kind of concerned about his reading. He was doing everything virtually, and we felt, the reading ability may have lacked. He may have developed as well as he would have in the classroom. So I thought, I'm sure there are other educators, parents that may have the same concerns. So as I was beginning to start my journey, I was mainly revolving around Lincoln, his reading ability, and how COVID and virtual learning may have affected him and others. By the time I got started in about 2022, 2023, my chair and I realized this research has already been done. It's been shown that COVID virtual learning had affected reading and math scores. So I had to find a new topic.
Mm-hmm.
And right at the beginning of 2023, OpenAI released its ChatGPT, and the world became quite split on the benefits of it in education. So I was like, hey, let's go ahead and get into this. I knew nothing about artificial intelligence before this. And so I went in strong, trying to keep my head above water. And I really enjoyed the journey. It was quite an eye-opening experience, reading both sides, how it's not for everybody. And people feel, hesitant getting into it, which, change theory, that's one of the results, can't blame them for that. And so there are lots of others who are gung-ho saying, yeah, man, this is all we need to do. So we need to find a good balance between the two. And I just wanted to see what educators out there were thinking about it.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. I again reading through your dissertation, it was a mixed study. You did both, the quantitative and the qualitative side of things, and just unpack your research a little bit. And one of the words that just continue to several words jumped out at me, and you just mentioned it, was perception, and the role of perception, again, which is perception doesn't have to do specifically with the technology, but perception has to do with the human being themselves and how they perceive the technology. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But unpack the as concise as you possibly can, the research and what some of the high level findings you discovered.
I would say the number one concern among educators was it was unknown. This was a brand new field to many people, and they were just unknown. Is this something that we're going to use? Is this something that truly is beneficial? And then mainly both administrators and teachers did not have any policies. So, and neither did the world, honestly. China and the EU and now the US recently now have all these policies for educators where, hey, here are some key objectives where we feel this new technology should be used and kind of guide now our teachers and administrators as they bring this technology into students. So that was one of the main things that teachers and administrators were hesitant to accept this. Some were very strong against it, seeing it as the Antichrist, into the world. And some were like, hey, this is a new technology. Great. Let's see if it really is what it is and can truly benefit us. So that was part of it. Other findings were that, we have students that are using this. A lot of students that were using this, like high percentages, looking, 70, 80% of students in colleges and in high schools using this technology, and they really didn't know how to use it. And so they're using it, and then we get into, you have your academic dishonesty where they're using it to write papers for them. So I think that really raises a concern for administrators specifically and teachers. Administrators say we need to have policies. Hey, this is what we can do with AI. This is what we feel is acceptable and will help you in your education to learn. But also for the teachers, hey, is this something that we're going to ban? This technology, or is this something that we need to learn about it so we can teach you about it and to use it appropriately. We need to cite it. We need to make sure that we're using our own human intelligence. That's a big part of a co-intelligence, if you want to call it that, where we use our human intelligence first, then we can use AI to support and complement our human intelligence. So it really raises an opportunity for administrators and teachers to really think, all right, how do we want this to look in our school, in our classrooms, with our students and our teachers, but also for teachers to open-mindedly look at this and see whatever its benefits, how that fits into their teaching style, because we don't want to force anybody to use this. We're not trying to change them. Teachers have enough things they have to use, right?
Indeed.
In the classroom. So those are some of the key findings.
Yeah, you yeah, obviously in the statistics that you just shared, there's an obvious lag. And again, we can probably talk for days about the lag that we've experienced probably in education in general, not just in Christian education. Call it over the last 40 or 50 years, where it seemed like the world was really shifting very, very fast, but the educators were very, very slow to kind of catch up. And when I read your research, I was like, it seems like this same trend is taking place where the kids are adopting things a whole lot faster than the adults are. And of course, that raises a serious issue. But where I want to center conversation on is this whole idea of co-intelligence. I did a two-part podcast about a year and a half ago on artificial intelligence, and I took somewhat of a deep dive into not specifically the technology that was coming out. I outlined the different ideas around artificial intelligence and some of the usages, but I was really kind of focusing on the human element. Like, really, what does it mean to be human? And I love your thoughts on this. It would seem even before administration or a part of the process of administrators writing policies, it would seem from a biblical standpoint, we need to get clear on what it actually means to be a human. And then once we kind of have that rubric in place, then we can effectively, I would assume, understand how that technology can aid what God has called us to do. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's definitely it. I believe most of our schools, especially ACSI schools who have gone through accreditation, they have that in place already. They have their statements of faith. They have a philosophy of education, a biblical education, Christian education.
Yes.
So those schools already have a good portion of the foundation they need to really look at how biblical philosophy, biblical worldview can tie into artificial intelligence. We don't want to force it, but we look at, all right, so here is our view of teaching. All right, here's our view of the learner. So how will parts of AI, whether we're using it to help our teachers do better in the classroom, to do functions in the classroom, lesson planning, to do that quicker? Is that something we want to help our teachers do? How will AI align with a biblical philosophy of teaching? How do we want our learners? Do we feel like using AI is going to take away from the biblical ethical standpoint? Is it going to take away their critical thinking, which is a huge concern? So I think schools, you have your statements of faith, you have your philosophy of education. That's your foundation, the Bible, your Christian view of that. So then we look at, all right, so here's what AI has been said to be able to do. It can help students who struggle with math, that struggle with learning, they have neurodiverse characteristics. So how can we take AI, and if we want our learners to leave our school as forward thinkers in a Christian background and to be able to think critically with a biblical worldview, how will AI fit into that? And you're not going to try to force it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't need to work.
Yeah.
So I think that's really where it is. I think a lot of people are saying, man, AI is this new thing. We got to force it into this box, and we don't. If it's something that can actually work for you with whatever foundation you feel it can, see if it works, do your research. So I think that's really important.
It reminds me, Jim Collins in his transformative book, Good to Great. He I think correctly outlines that the proper view of technology is as an accelerator. And if we understand that technology can accelerate, it can accelerate on both sides, right? It can accelerate very, very bad things, which we're actually seeing, right? but it can also accelerate really, really good things. And, to your point earlier about folks thinking that AI might be the Antichrist, maybe those individuals are watching way too many podcasts of a certain
Terminator.
type,
Yeah, really.
but true, I've watched my number of Terminator movies as well. And so I think the fear is understood. It,
Yes.
it very much is, especially way. But again, if we truly have a biblical philosophy of education, if we truly have a biblical worldview, then we operate from the starting point. Our prime presupposition is that everything that exists in the world here, everything that's even AI, that comes from the mind of God. It ultimately does. And so what I hear you're saying is ultimately we need to ask the right questions, and when we develop our policies, we need to have the right starting point, because if we see this as an opportunity to really accelerate all the good things about advancing God's kingdom, then it takes us out of that reactive mode of, oh, we need to kind of solve a problem here because everybody's using it, and it's less reactive, less fear, and it's more optimistic.
Yeah, I agree. And it's hard with AI because it has exponentially grown. In the 2 years that I was just doing the research on this, I had to continually every month add a new part where AI has grown. I originally called Microsoft Bing and Google Bard, but in
Now
that
it's
time, Microsoft Bing became Copilot
pilot.
and Bard became Gemini. So it's growing so quickly. It's hard to stay ahead of it. But I think, if we're open-minded and we're realizing that God has gifted not me, other individuals with the ability to create such an amazing tool that doesn't have to fit your teaching style, but if you find it to help you and to help your students, that's something that you can engage in.
Yeah. Also in your research, you mentioned about the role of professional development in schools. Obviously, the first starting point is, administrators. Administrators have so much control over the school. I mean, they're the leaders of the school. They're the ones that's helping to set policies. But what I noticed in your research is also the whole idea of professional development and the importance of that with teachers, and that it seems that if teachers are not being trained, or I can say it another way, what I perceive in what you've written is that teacher usage and the ability to be able to implement this appropriately is somehow connected to professional development offered in the school.
Right. I agree. And it may not, I think it's developmentally, we want to develop as professionals. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right, right.
It's nothing that I would never want administrators to say, hey, you have to do this.
Mm.
As I said, our teachers already have so many things in their toolbox, you know? So I think it really comes down to teachers, we all have to agree. We see this in the news. We see academic dishonesty. We see plagiarism. We see large percentage of students using this. We can't continue to go blindly and not realize that our own students are using it. So I've been asked to do a few professional developments in my school with our high school and our elementary. And I first going in, I'm like, hey, this is nothing that I'm expecting you to use. If this fits you, great. Use it. You've got questions, ask me. If this is not you, don't use it. You've got lots of other tools that are helping you be the great teacher that you are, you know? So I want people to be open-minded. Just look into it, play around with it a little bit and
Yeah.
see what it can do, see what other people are doing. Just be introduced to it and be open-minded about it. And if it works for you, great. The other thing is you have to be aware of it a little bit, be able to recognize some signs, and you have to have a policy. If your school doesn't have a policy, at least have a classroom policy that, hey, this lesson or this paper, we're not using AI at all. This one you can use it for brainstorming. This one you can use it to check for spelling, different mechanics. This one, hey, have full range, see what we can do, and then let's compare each other's. And look for the risk. Is there misinformation? Is there privacy issues? Is there hallucination? Is there bias? That's one of the things we in my class, as we continue to do this, we see there are quite a few biases, and it's unfortunate that come out. So lots of different things that teachers have to be aware, hey, your students are using this, whether you like it or not. So we have to be knowledgeable on how it's working. And then as students have questions, or you find that they're using it, or at least in your classroom, let them know ahead of time. And we're here for them. They're going into an age of technology. The colleges are already using this and integrating it into their classroom, and we're preparing them for college for those students that will be going on. So let's help our students. And that's the thing. We want to help our students be prepared for the world, see it from a Christian background, perspective, and develop a worldview. Hey, I can use AI the right way without getting in trouble or, plagiarizing.
Yeah, I just continue to be intrigued by this whole idea of the right perspective is AI is not going to think for us. If we allow AI to think for us, then we're gonna fall into that trap. Right. that the human beings have been what makes us different as human beings is that we have the ability to think about our own existence, and that is a gift from God. I read George Gilder's Life After Google, and he has I don't know if you're familiar with his section on life. Well, he goes in. I really love it. And I don't think George Gilder is a Christian, but his insight on the misplaced faith that human beings have, or even the programmers or the engineers at Google, he says it's wrong. He says the idea, again, this is George Gilder, who's probably not a Christian. He says the idea that you can flip a switch fast enough and it produces consciousness doesn't make any sense. And I love that.
Right. It's a machine.
That's exactly right. It's a machine. And so what I hear you saying is that, as Christian educators, we need to, again, have the appropriate view of AI, but if there's anything that we need to kind of ramp up, and this is what I hear you doing in your classrooms, it's really making sure that our students can think critically so we can use AI appropriately. The Christian educators should be modeling that. And a part of that is, I think Christian educators should have a level of curiosity. I know some of us have different levels of curiosity. Some of us like I just want to do my job. Totally understand that. But, at the same time, it's critical thinking is really about curiosity. I think it's a desire to want to know, and a desire to want to understand, and to be able to apply those skills to the world around us to help us gain knowledge, and that knowledge ultimately lead to God glorifying wisdom. And so you mentioned about a Socratic implement. I think one of the recommendations was a Socratic seminar. Can you unpack that for folks who may not understand? Most people can recognize the name Socrates, but when you put Socratic seminar together, folks are like, that sounds good, sounds hard, but what is that?
Yeah, so with the Socratic method, we're looking at really the students asking questions and you asking questions, and really learning through a series of questions, critically thinking and building knowledge. So in the classroom, we have students who research something based on their own human intelligence, not using technology, and then others who are using the AI. And then what happens is you're able to compare the two, and through one group who uses their human intelligence research, asking questions, and the AI group asking the HI group, the human intelligence group, asking them questions, and then the HI kind of coming back and asking the AI group questions. Well, this is what we found. What do you feel the AI says? And then you're able to say, oh, you know what? This is misinformation, which is one of those AI risks. Or man, that's quite biased in what you found. Helping students to critically think by questioning their human intelligence that God's given them, their biblical or their AI research, and they're just able to grow and really find what is truth
Mm.
through that. And they're able to build a good worldview and just a great understanding and build their knowledge.
Yeah, it's really it's so important, and I think even that process just really helps them give a better appreciation for even how God has, designed them, and just what the tools that God has put around us, uh, to aid our, at least the way that I think about it, to aid our appreciation for the world that the Lord has created. One thing that I'm just fascinated is just the speed in which you can get information. I was sharing with my son the other day. It's like one of my favorite usages of AI is, I've read a lot of the classics over the years, and I love reading through the classics, and I'm still making my way through some of the classics. But I know certain areas, I know certain works have quoted certain things, but I have a propensity to misquote things. I know the general idea of what it is, and then I'll have a thought. It's like, all right, well, I read this, in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and I read this in War of the Worlds. These are both dystopian type novels. Hey, can you compare these two ideas? So I've already read them, but I just need like a little quick comparison just to kind of remind me of what I've already read and already written. So I told my son, it's like, that's one of the things that I love about AI. It's like I have a pretty extensive library. I don't have to go back and find, the actual verse where it is. AI, that those classics have been programmed for the most part into AI, and they can do some comparison work. But the point is, it doesn't replace my thinking. The knowledge already exists within my mind. It's just I have an idea about, all right, can you compare these two ideas and give me some quotes from these two particular passages? So I really appreciate the idea of training the minds of the students to operate and appreciate their God-given intelligence, and but also understanding what AI can and cannot do.
Right. I think that was really shown with the MIT study that just came out, where they had two groups. You had brain only learners, and you had the
Mhm.
LLM, the large language model, or the AI learners. And so seeing that these brain only learners who are writing and learning using just their human intelligence scored much better than those who even actually did use their human intelligence and brainstormed and did some drafting and then pulled in AI to help them. They actually scored second, and those who used only the AI actually scored the least.
Mm.
So that's interesting that some of the studies in the MIT study showed that, brain only, human intelligence only, and that's top notch. And again, we can attribute that to God. He's given us the abilities to do these things, bring in technology to help us, if we need it, but really, we've got everything we need.
Yeah,
Thanks, God.
yeah, that's super encouraging. We've talked about recommendations for administrators, making sure that they have some type of policy, or even if the school doesn't have an overarching policy, the Christian educator in the classroom can develop their own policy, just it fully integrated into their lesson planning. So determining and being transparent about, hey, we need to use it for this, but we're not going to use it for this. And so there's an intentionality that the teacher in the classroom needs to have. I've heard that Christian educators, they need to tinker around with it themselves, kind of see what it can and can't do. That they shouldn't try and force this, but naturally integrate this and use this appropriately to aid what's going on in the classroom. But try and overcome some of that fear just by getting in and seeing what it can do. Um, but I want to ask one more, I think, important questions. There's a lot of Christian developers who are exploring this whole idea. Well, what does a large language model look like from a biblical worldview? And so my question to you is, what recommendation would you give to a Christian developer who wants to, because we talked about bias, right? Who wants to um, develop technology that's really going to aid Christian educators in the classroom in their pursuit of advancing God's kingdom, producing works, gaining knowledge, gaining wisdom. What recommendations would you have for Christian developers who want to develop a large language model from a biblical worldview? I know that's a lot, but just love your thoughts on
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I think that's a hard ask of a developer. It really is. You want to have enough information in the LLM to give results, to be able to use their algorithm to put all of this information together to give responses, to give suggestions for the teacher, the Christian teacher. So it's a large ask of them. But I feel, with ACSI and several other Christian-based organizations who are leaders in education, we have some pretty smart people out there who have written some amazing curriculum, some amazing research that can benefit these LLMs. So let's take what we have, these long lists of Christian-based research. We have the Bible. Let's make sure that whatever Bible verses, whatever Christian things, vet it, look at it, make sure, this is aligning. It isn't something that is meant to look like the Bible or sound Christianese. It's make sure that we have the base and the foundation of the Bible in these resources, and then build that LLM, but also have that LLM respond in the responses. So we know these chat bots give a response. I think it would be really cool I think, just kind of a little caveat. So or a sideway here. So Mizzou, Mizzou, is a great AI where you as a teacher can build a chat bot, and it gives you, say, hey, here's the objective I want the students to do. Here's the grade level. Here's kind of the standard you want to fill in. And then what that chatbot does is it asks a question, and then the student can respond, giving them their knowledge of it. And then the chatbot reads it, and then based on the response, how much they do know, or maybe they don't know, the student doesn't know, it asks another question. So Mizzou is a great chatbot that kind of helps students learn based on where they are,
It's like
which
a
I love.
scaffolding approach.
I think
Yeah.
Totally, yes. And so I think with Christian education, we can come up with an LLM that does something like that, where these questions are like, all right, so how does this align with the Bible? If Genesis says, hey, God created this from nothing, yet this curriculum says, it developed from a big bang or some other feature, you know, how does that align? Tell me your thoughts. And so we're building that critical thinking, but it's Christian worldview on that. So I think for Christian developers, having something like that where as the responses are given, they're able to give it in a way that's going to critically think and build that critical thinking from a biblical perspective for our students. Based on the wide amount of experts, Christian experts that are out there. So I think that would be great for our developers. And I think another part of it is these LLMs can come up with games, also some curriculum ideas where we integrate, these Christian standards. We've got ACSI, we've got, I can't think of them off the top of my head, but these other great organizations where, they have these tools already. Let's use them in these AI chatbots and these LMs as we're developing responses where we can really build on the biblical foundation, and our students have the opportunity to question it and build their own spiritual formation and growth through these type of LLMs.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that keeps coming back to mind, especially as it relates to this, the Christian developers, it's important, especially in this paradigm, that they need to have a robust Christian worldview because, as I heard someone say recently, garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
So, mhm.
So I think,
Yes.
it's really important that, we have these developers. I mean, we've got all these wonderful, great, like there's Magic School that's out there for teachers. We have, like the Mizu that I talked about. We have Khan Academy. You've got Quiz and lots of these tools for teachers to use. But again, we get into Chat GPT, or we get into Perplexity, or we get into Claude. Those 3 top AI chat bots where you can ask a question or put in your prompt and it gives you a response. I think it'd be great to have a Christian version. I'm not sure if there's one out there. I haven't found it yet. And if there is one, I'd love to look at it, and where that prompt that you put in is automatically giving you a response based on Christian literature, based on the Bible, based on Christian research and findings, so that our Christian schools, teachers and students and administrators alike, they're able to use that information, those responses, those tools, those games, whatever, use that information and not have to go through so much critical thinking, so much searching for misinformation or bias. You're still going to have some because we're human, we miss things, right? But I think it's another opportunity for Christian developers to really look at developing a Christian-based program, model, tool that could really alleviate so much work for the Christian educator and finding all of that bias, So I think that'd be really cool.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Steve, really appreciate the work that you've done, and I'd like to think that it's providential that the Lord led you into this work, and I know that the work that you're doing in your school, it's transforming minds and hearts and encouraging the students. We didn't get to take a deep dive into how are you using that for student literacy gains as well. I know that was a big part of your research, but maybe next time. But thank you so much. Any final words you want to give of encouragement or advice for our Christian educators?
Sure. I think it's something where, God has equipped us all with different gifts and strengths. And if this AI technology is interesting to you, I would just encourage you to play around with it and see, if it works for you. If it's something that scares you, maybe do some reading about it. But overall, I just say continue doing the wonderful work that you're doing for God's kingdom, and if AI fits into it, great. If not, keep doing a great job for him.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Steve. I'm going to call you Dr. Steve. That was a well-earned PhD, and I can tell you it was a benefit to me reading it. God bless you, and may the Lord continue to expand your kingdom in this much-needed area of thinking about generative AI, artificial intelligence from a biblical worldview. God bless you.
All right. Thank you. You too.
Grafted Together is a presentation of the Association of Christian Schools International. Learn more about biblical worldview and spiritual formation at acsi.org/graftedtogether.